Coming to you from a little bit different location. I decided to go out and see a movie tonight and get out of the house. It's been really cold the last 2 weeks and I am so over cold. I'm just tired of being cold. Anyway, I went and saw Melania and it was a good movie. Good look behind the scenes. The whole time I'm thinking, her poor feet. At one time she said that the whole inaugural day and dinners and dances and everything, there was a 22-hour day. And it was a 22-hour day on her high heels. And I just, when she finally sat down at their house in the mansion, the White House, the first thing she did was kick off her shoes, and I just went, oh, can't imagine that. Oh. I have thoughts and feelings about it, nothing intense. I just think we're missing a trick by actually being able to get to know her and absorb her experience. She's gotten shut out of so many things because of, people hating Trump, and so therefore, she gets lumped in with it, and that's unfortunate because as an immigrant, she has a lot to share. As a very successful businesswoman or whatever, she's got a lot to share. As a mother, I just really feel like we're missing something by not knowing her, and that's unfortunate. Everybody has something to share, and I think she's got a good heart. And anyway, aside from that, as promised, here comes number 3. I'm going to leave the car running because it is cold and my phone's plugged in. So when I stopped at the end of chapter 2, we were packing up to move again. And it's been a trend to move far away from anything we ever knew or understood. And that follows through on our next move. We are now moving to Texas. Yeah, Texas. And not only Texas, we're moving to El Paso, Texas. I think there are many Texases. And the one we were moving to is unique. Being a border town, being at the very edge tip of the state, the farthest western part of and southern part of Texas. On the other side of the Rio Grande is Mexico. So that's where we moved. And unfortunately, when we left Iowa, the second oldest of my dad's daughters decided to stay there and finish high school there. So we dropped a sister there, lost a sister there. It was really sad for me. I don't like losing people. And over the last 4 years, she became my sister, and now she's no longer my sister. I mean, she's still my sister, but she's no longer in my life. And the opportunity I had to see her was, 3-4 times since then. So, and now she's passed away. But anyway, so yeah, we lost her, and but we went on down to El Paso. My dad had a job and a house and everything set up for us when we got there. I think it wasn't long before school started. We went between school years and got to know the area a bit. There's an east-west side of El Paso. The east side has a lot more businesses and malls, and there's actually an army base over there. The airport's over there. It's just a lot more developed. There's housing over there. There's a really amazing thing on the northeast side of town, outside of town. It's an amphitheater. One of my bucket lists was to go to Red Rock in Colorado and see somebody really good in concert. Well, this would rival Red Rock. Red Rock is bigger and more popular, but this place is pretty cool, and I got to see a concert there. And but anyway, they've got that on the east side, and And then there's kind of a downtown, which is small, because El Paso is positioned around the tip of a mountain. And they're at this, so it kind of makes a shoehorn, or I'm not a shoehorn, a horseshoe around the tip of the mountain. And so we were on the west side of the mountain, and there are some businesses there and strip malls and stuff like that, but it's heavily residential on the west side. We do have the University of Texas in El Paso there. UTEP is on the west side. And that's where we went to high school. And as far as the homes go, the higher you are on the hill, the nicer the home, essentially. And so we lived mid to halfway up. So, we lived in a nice home. We went to Coronado High School, which was an extremely big transition because there were 2,000 students. Where in Iowa, we'd left a student population of maybe 200, if that, I'm not sure. 25, 100, maybe between 100 and 200 people. Okay, there goes my trying to set this up right. Anyway, it was such a transition to go from a rather small town, small school to a large city and a large school with a large campus. My dad's youngest daughter moved there with us, but she did not go to school there. She only stayed for a couple months and she moved back with her mom in Utah. So now the steps are gone. It's just our family again. We were very involved with church, active in our church. There was a lot of young people, so we had a good group of young people to run and do things with and hung out. And not just in our ward, but our stake had a strong young men, young women's organization. And so we did things as a stake, and it was just great. We had a good time, and we would have like Friday lunches at one of the sisters' houses, like one of the family's house, and their mom would make a big old luncheon for us on Fridays, and we would, because it was an open campus and we could do that, and just socially it was really cool. We did go to girls camp, and to me it was amazing. We camped in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, which is outside of Alamogordo. Yep, Alamogordo. And, no. Yes, outside of Alamogordo. And it's one of those things where you drive up into the desert mountain, and there's like scrub brush, but that's it. It's just dirt. And you're driving on the road, and you come to this big, tunnel. Jeez, Leslie. And you go in this big long tunnel, which isn't unheard of in the mountains. And it'll have like little cutout, and you can see the desert. And then, but when you come out of this long tunnel, you're like in the Rocky Mountains. There's pine trees, and there's meadows and grass. And it's just like Shangri-La. Like, it's this amazing pocket heaven. And we're driving through there to get to camp. And this is where our camp was. And so we were in a forest with green and flowers. And it was amazing because down in El Paso, it was just desert. And we had come from Iowa, where there was green everywhere. There was corn, there was beans, there was just green, and water, and green. And now we've just, I was going through serious green deprivation. I'll tell you that. And I began to, and still have a pretty strong hate for the desert. There are some things I like about the desert, but, and I always say the only way the desert looks good is at night, because you can't look at it. But yeah, we camped up there, and we were camping in tents, and we were hiking, and there was this huge, well, not huge, but there was this big water tower, and it had one pipe coming off it, and all us girls would line up. We'd have like a swimsuit on, and we'd take our turns, and that's what we would shower in, was this hose that dumped out water, ice cold water. And that we cooked over a fire, and it was amazing. I loved it so much. We did a lot of hiking and everything. It was heaven. I was a freshman in Iowa, so I was a sophomore there, and it was okay. My sister, number one, had met a friend from across the street, and so they became real close friends. I really didn't have a friend there, like special friend there, which was, okay. My dad, before his third daughter, moved away, he had taken the garage and converted it into a bedroom, and it was lovely, and it had this big double closet. It had a sink with a mirror with the studio lights around it, and made it real fancy, and that was our bedroom. And then there was like a gap in between where the washer and dryer was, and then it went into the house in the kitchen dining room area. And in the bedroom there was a window there. Well, as I said, his daughter didn't stay there but a couple months, and she moved away, so it was my room. My little sister, second sister, would come in and sleep in there occasionally with me, because, she wanted to, or I wanted her to, whatever. But I remember one night, I'd come home from some kind of activity, and so it was probably about 11:30 at night, and I'm sitting on my bed, and I got my radio on low. I mean, they couldn't hear me on the other side of the house anyway, but my dad had supersonic hearing, so anyway, and I'm writing a letter to my grandma S, and all of a sudden I hear this scratching at the window, and I had the window open, but the screen was in, and I heard this like metal on metal scratching at it, and I just said, "Go away!" And there was rocks between our sidewalk and then the garage, and so I heard footsteps running off the rocks. I'm like, well, cool, he's gone, And so I went back to writing my letter. And after a little while, I heard the scraping on the window. Now, I had a sheer curtain there, so it was shut. I didn't see anyone earlier. And I heard the scraping again, and just really getting at it. And so I just got really mad. And I got up, and I walked over, and I threw back the curtain. I said, "I told you to go!" And there was a guy standing there with a screwdriver. And I must have scared the heck out of him, because he just ran for it. I don't know if he dropped a screwdriver or not, but he took off running. And so I went in. My mom was walking my baby sister. She had been crying, so she's walking her in the hall. And I said, Mom, some guy tried to get in the window. And her face went white. And so her and Dad came in and checked it out outside, and so he put a big security light there and all this stuff, and whatever, guards, anything protection he could do on that. But after it all settled down, I'm like, oh, like I realized what I'd done. Like that was a guy trying to get in, and and El Paso, it's cleaned up and gotten better, but it's a dangerous city. You every morning you see the Mexicans walking across the Rio Grande going to work, and then walking home at the end of the day. And, I'm sure that guy would have taken whatever opportunities he could to do whatever he wanted and possibly kill us, But, yeah, so my temper is so funny, because, you have these fight, flight, or freezes, and Fight tends to be my go-to without thought, you know. So that is something that happened there. My brother got injured doing some goofy stuff on a skateboard on a hill. My mom worked with me on sewing still some more, and I don't know, I guess that was important. You know, I did it. I really don't care about it. I don't mind sewing. I don't like following a pattern. I don't like the little darts and the little this and a little that. And yes, it's all for reasons and it will make it work and look better. But to me, it's just like boring, you know, boring. So that was El Paso. The unfortunate part of El Paso is we did not leave everything in Iowa. The monster problem followed us to El Paso. So I was not freed. And it continued. Luckily, it never continued in that room that was built for me. But it did continue. My brother taught me how to play Mumbly Peg, the game that has gotten me in trouble as a nanny. But we played Mumbly Peg. What it is you take a little stick and you whittle it down, and almost like a little golf tee, and you stick it in the ground, and you play this game where you take the knife and you flip it off your thumb or whatever, and if it sticks in the ground straight up, you know, you get a point, and you keep flipping through your fingers as it sticks, and you know, flip it off your elbow and all, and like, you know, like this. And whoever has the most points wins. Whoever has the, you know, doesn't, and you put that peg in the ground. There's just a little sticking up, and they have to dig the peg out with their teeth. And it's a game that was played way back in the 1800s with boys. And so yeah, me and my brother used to play Mumbly Peg. I got pretty good with a knife because of it. Later as a nanny, I had 3 boys, and I thought I'd teach them Mumbly Peg. It was all fine till they told their parents, and they freaked out, and it's been kind of a running joke that our nanny teaches our boys to play with knives. It never was meant to be like that. But yeah, so that was El Paso. We didn't stay there but 5 months, and he took another transfer, and this time we went to Siloam Springs, Arkansas. Another culture shock. One thing about El Paso is there were Mexicans, right? You know, U.S. Mexicans everywhere. And I was so happy to speak Spanish again, you know, to resuscitate this language that I was speaking fluently, but, you know, kind of lost it. And my stepmother used to embarrass us by asking us to speak it. And so I kind of didn't want to, so I was losing it. So I was so proud to start to speak Spanish. And when I would speak Spanish to, you know, these Mexican kids, they're like, well, that's not Spanish. That's Puerto Rican Spanish. That's not Spanish. You know, and so it further shamed me again for speaking Spanish, you know. That was a bummer, man, because it would have been so nice to continue that language that I, you know, grew to love. And I think it is a little different. It is different than Mexican Spanish, but I think we could have come to terms, you know, had they let me work with it, and I could have modulated, you know, and spoke Mexican Spanish, but whatever. So that was a bit of a loss. We then moved to Siloam Springs, Arkansas, and it was our family, no stepsisters. I think their date braces were off by then. They didn't need anything financially from my dad. So there we are in Siloam Springs, Arkansas. It is culture shock. We are in the Ozarks proper, and never heard of it. Didn't know nothing about it. You know, I'm sure there were people that made moonshine there. In fact, my one of our neighbors, her dad made moonshine. And anyway, so that's where we moved next. The day we got there, got all the stuff moved in the house. Mom's like, I'm going to go to town and get food. And I never want to leave the house. Whenever we move, I never want to leave the house. Like, I want to be there alone, and I want to tune into the house. I want to tune into my new environment. I always have. And they would always go out to eat or go get something. And I'd be like, just go. I don't need to go. I just want to become one with my new environment by myself. And so that's what I was doing. But then I guess Dad is going, and I guess he decided not to go. So first day. Had to christen the new house. Which meant nothing changed. He half-assed made a bedroom in the garage for me and sister number one. Never got finished. Had a faux sub-wall between the door and us. I guess had his daughter been there, it would have been nicer. But, yeah, that really sucked. But that's how my life was, right? So we go to school. I'm able to make a few friends. There's a gal that lived next to us. We had some kind of ranch-style houses in a cul-de-sac area. We were outside of town, and then her home was a farm home that they lived in. So we were on the outside of town. And her name was Penny, and her and I became quick friends, and she was really cool. And I, was involved in band again, and we weren't there. We were there 9 months, so we weren't there very long either. But we did go to school, and I was in band. What was so cool about that is we got to play the Star Wars theme, and that was so cool. And at that time, that was a big thing. And I played the baritone, so a lot of my part was bum 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 bum. It was so cool. We had a small branch there, which is a smaller congregation than our normal congregations. And so it was small. It was tight-knit. We were, there were local people there. They were kind of unique. When we'd have potlucks, somebody would bring rabbit or something like that, and we're all just like, oh, But they were good people. It was the closest congregation of people I'd ever experienced. And we were a family, and it was amazing. And in the church, they used to have these things for the young women and men called road shows. And you would come up with a play, song and dance, little play or whatever. And then all of them, you'd get together for this big night, and everybody would put on their show, and you would get, they'd pick first place, second place, third place, whatever. And so we were going to do that in our little branch. And we were so fortunate enough to have Golden Age missionaries. Those are missionaries that are older. They've been married. They've had their kids. Their kids are grown and gone. These people are usually grandmas and grandpas, retired. And that's what we had, as a retired, couple who are now on a mission. We lucked out, though, because these people were from Los Angeles. These people helped choreograph some of the biggest movies back in the day. I'm not saying Singing in the Rain, but stuff like that. Plays on that caliber. Or movies on that caliber. Or plays they did as well. So we had these amazing choreographers that were teaching us how to do this play. And it was on a farmyard one. and Mom made me and I think sister number one to me. We were chickens. She made us these big chicken costumes and had a chicken head with a comb on top and different farm animals, and it was really cool. We had these little songs and dances but these missionaries, they were very exacting. They weren't mean or harsh, but you had to do it right, and you would keep doing it till you got it right. And so we went there and we just blew the roof off that place. And it was so amazing. And we won. And a bunch of the guys, we had a convertible Volkswagen Bug. And these guys went out there and turned it around. They picked it up and turned it around. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And we would go to there's Fayetteville, Arkansas. They have a university there. But then there was Fort Smith, Arkansas. That's where our stake was. And so there was this thing called Super Saturdays, and it was like one Saturday a month, and you'd go down there and they'd have all these different little lessons or things you could do, and then they would have a dance at the end, and it was a highlight. And so we did a lot of that and had fun, and I made some friends, and I remember we had this lock-in one night, and we're going to read the Book of Alma, and which is a very long book in the Book of Mormon. And we were going to stay up all night and read it, and had to make pizzas and all this. So we did do that, and that was fun. And there was a boy that I really liked, and he liked me, and his name was Michael. I don't know what it is with me and Mike's, but anyway, he liked me. He was thin and had rosy cheeks, and he was a senior in high school. He was very serious-minded, and he was out of high school. But he was getting ready to go on a mission. And his parents were interesting. His dad was a psychiatrist, and his mom, it was a stepmom, had used to be Pentecostal, so she is pretty, uptight, whatever. I mean, she wasn't mean. She's just very quiet and very, straight-laced. But, like they wouldn't eat sugar, So, I don't know. But I just thought he was the world, and he loved me. He asked me to wait for him while he was on his mission, and he wanted to marry me, and he wanted to build me, and this is where he lost me, an adobe mansion in the desert. I'm like, no way. So I had to be honest with him and tell him that I would not wait for him. From what I hear, he went on to have a very successful career. He does not live he lives in Utah, but he actually was involved with a very notable case out there and really helped a child who was in a dire situation. So he had done well for himself, but he did it without me. So, that's what happened. I remember sister number one was getting a little rowdy and a lot of control, but we were still a pair. So I turned 16. I took driving the next place we moved. So, but yeah, that was Arkansas. I think one of the notable things for me is they have all these lakes and icy water. I want to be in water. And I was told absolutely you cannot swim in any of these lakes. And I'm like, why not? They said, because there's snakes in them. And I said, what? Snakes in lakes? And they're like, yeah, they're water moccasins. And all I could think of was moccasins that you wear in your shoes. No, they're deadly. You can't get in there. And Copperhead. And I just hated it because here was this beautiful. It's beautiful. Those lakes are beautiful. And the lakes are great. And you can't swim in any of them. Terrible. I'm trying to think of anything else that I can think of from there. Just school was pretty average. There was this one guy from our church. He was a little bit of an odd duck. And he had this house. And in his backyard, he had a cave. And he was a survivalist or one of those prepper guys. And so he invited my mom and us kids to come out and see his property. So we went out there, and he had this cutest little baby pigs and goats. Oh, baby goats. And then he showed us his cave, and so we went in the cave, and he had, like, we all had flashlights, and we got a good way in there, and you could stand up. It was not, like, squeezy, walk-through-y. Oh, and I'll go back to El Paso. Well, okay, I'll talk about him, and I'll go back to El Paso. Anyway, then he says, okay, everybody turn off your flashlight. And so we turned off our flashlights, and it was so dark. I mean, you couldn't see your hand in front of you. You could see nothing. Nothing. You could see nothing. And it was so dark. It was like this vapor of darkness that they talked about in the Book of Mormon. After Jesus was crucified, there was this vapor of darkness that spread across the land. And I could finally understand what that meant. And it just was so dark. And it was dizzy. Like, I got dizzy because I didn't know if I was standing or what. And then he said, okay, now let's turn him back on. And I got reoriented, and it was okay. But wow. And it went on and on. We didn't go on and on. We just did that little thing I think he wanted to teach us or show us kids. But when we lived in El Paso, we went to Carlsbad Caverns. And we're like, yay, because I'd been in the Oregon, caves and stuff like that. So I'm not a stranger to caves. I don't love being in caves and being underground. I'm a bit claustrophobic. And so, but anyway, we went to Carlsbad Caverns, and we're going down through it, all this, and they say, this time of night and the afternoon, all the bats fly out. I think we missed that, or we luckily missed that. And so we're going down in this thing, and just down and down and down and down. And I mean, it's very interesting. It's very nice, but I'm starting to get a little concerned that we're going to have to come back up out of this thing, and our guide is not talking anything about that. And so we're navigating these little trails and stuff, and it was absolutely amazing. That's why I love Journey to the Center of the Earth, because it's pretty cool. And anyway, I think you go down a half mile or a mile down, and you get down at the bottom, and there has concessions and all this stuff, and like picnic tables you can sit and get something to drink, and bag of chips, whatever, and all of that. But the best thing at the bottom, the best part of being at the bottom, is there's an elevator. And they don't tell you that before. They just let you think you're going to have to hike your butt up out of there. But yeah, everybody was so glad to see that elevator. Like, oh my gosh, it was crazy. But yeah, it was pretty cool. But that's it for Arkansas and El Paso. We weren't there, but 14 months total for the both of them. A possible death rape scenario over in El Paso. Almost being trapped forever in Carlsbad Caverns. And, and not being able to swim with the snakes in Arkansas. My friend next door, her dad did make moonshine. She gave me some. I drank it. I once had tried Puerto Rican rum. My dad had us all taste it. It was horrible. Ugh. And so I got to try the moonshine, and it was like drinking gasoline. I'm like, why would you ever drink this willingly? It was so disgusting. But she says her dad loves it and says it's good stuff. Like, well, good for him. So, yeah. So the monster stayed with us. But I'm glad we went to Arkansas. It was such a culture shock. I am, by that time being cultured on so many different ways. California, Sunshine State, Utah, snow and mountains, Puerto Rico, jungles and monkeys, Iowa, corn, beans, and green. And now Texas, Mexico and desert. And, there is beauty in the desert. There's nothing that smells better than when it rains and the gray sky in the desert and the rain. There's no better smell. And when they burn their fires in their fireplace, that pinyon pine, Ain't nothing better smelling than that. And then, you know, now we're in the I can't think of the name of it, but we're in the Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas, and enjoying the beauty of that. So my next one, that is the end of chapter 3. Our next one will be chapter 4, and it will take place in our next move. So thank you for following these. I love you. Have a good night. Bye.